Here.
Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderman Ornowitz.
Here.
Alderman Kotar.
Here.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Chairman Tyus.
Present.
6 present, we have quorum.
Thank you. Again, just to go on the record in case we wasn't. I am sorry that I'm late. I did not mean to be a half an hour late. I was copying a memorandum of understanding that I want to bring before this committee, and in copying it, found out that some pages were missing. We've gone over it a million times. I want to thank, we have here the Director of Personnel, Richard Franks, and his trusty assistant, Linda Thomas, and they have been so great. They're going to present the bill. I don't need to go down there. They have schooled me, and they have made it so that I can actually answer questions on the floor, but they're going to present the bill. But there was some questions we had about this memorandum of understanding, and we read it, I don't know how many times, but there was a page missing. And if that were me and that page was missing, I would have said somebody did it on purpose. So, to make sure that we were not falsely accused, I called this morning and asked them to go get it. And I'd asked them to please sit down at the end of the table for both of you all. Want you to know, yesterday we worked for 3 hours on this, going through every single page for every question I had. It's Board Bill 68, which is going to be before us. I'm not a fan of Board Bill 68, but I did agree to sponsor it, and I will stand up for it, even with some of the things I don't like it, okay? It is a pay bill for the city of St. Louis. It's important. And this is what happens when you step on the other side. It's easy to throw the rocks, but when you have to carry the board bill, it becomes a little bit harder. And with that, I would ask Mr. Frank and Ms. Thomas if they would answer questions. Well, I'm gonna move to put Board Bill 68 for the committee. Is that correct?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. But we also have some amendments, some friendly amendments, so I think we need to adopt the amendments and before we address the full board bill. Okay, so there's going to be a little problem here. Amendments that they gave me, I couldn't make the copies because you guys didn't have them marked. Okay, so when I went to make the copies, they're not marked, so we need, if you could just bear with us, about 5 minutes where you could go through the pages and underline them, just those pages, and then I'll have them make copies of them, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon?
I have to do a roll call.
Okay.
Alderman Williamson.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Ornowitz.
Aye.
Alderman Kotar.
Aye.
Alderwoman
Green. Chairman Tyus.
Aye.
6 yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. We found mistakes, we found things that needed to be updated. We also wanted to make sure we make sure that the pay period, so everybody would get paid since we were a day or so behind. So thanks to the wonderful people in personnel, they figured out a way that people will get paid and they can make that happen. So we wanted to adjust it to make that happen. So it's going to take just a minute. I was going to take that home and make copies so I would have it for you, but they weren't marked. They were just with pink tabs. And so in order to make these amendments, we have to have them before you. So it's going to take just a few minutes. And then we'll make the copies and then we'll talk. It's not going to be the full board bill. It'll just be the pages that need to be changed, okay? And while you're doing it, Linda, if on the back page where we just put board, could you underline that one because it should be Board of Aldermen?
Sure.
I mean, it says Alderman and it should be Board.
Right.
Right. While we're doing this, we didn't need all of this. Okay, you made this whole thing, okay. So the other thing we did is I wanted to bring something before you, if you don't mind, while we're waiting for them to do the copies. One of the things that brought kind of great distress to me is the memorandum of understanding. I talked with Alderman Williamson, who is on streets.
I'm not on the streets, but I attended that
You
meeting.
attended that meeting, okay. And so there was a memorandum of understanding that I had already. But in this memorandum of understanding is from Refuge. It talked about the fact that they have an agreement with with the personnel director, which he's authorized to do that not only by seniority could you pick your routes, but you could also pick the new trucks. Now, we just spent a continuous amount of time raising our fees for trash $3. The way this was gonna shake out is that all the senior truck drivers, as well as all the senior new trucks, were gonna go to one side of the town, because it was said at the streets meeting that nobody wants to be in North St. Louis, so that meant that the senior people could pick South St. Louis and take all the new trucks. That is a racist impact that is not acceptable for me, and it would not be acceptable if it was gonna be against South St. Louis or the Central Quarter. That's not acceptable for our city.
Clarify, and yeah, it is, you're right, it's racist, but there's even black drivers that would rather drive in South St. Louis than North St. Louis.
And they're also being, that's a racial impact against North St. Louis, okay?
And it's mainly because of the routes. They like the routes better on the south side, it's what they told us in the meeting, the streets committee, than they go on the north side, so.
Right, okay. I don't care if it's black or white people. If you're being racist against black people, you're being racist against black people, okay? Yes.
Well, they must not like me because I just got a ton of phone calls in the last few days. The trash in my area hasn't picked up for 2 weeks.
So that's a whole separate thing,
Yeah.
okay? This is about how they assign the trucks. We're getting new trucks now, and we wanna make it clear that you are not gonna assign trucks to one side of town, okay? That's not gonna happen. New trucks are gonna go every place. I've talked to a Southside alderman for years about, you all are all much newer than me, okay? But for years, you talk to the other Southside aldermen, I would tell them all the time, we let the Central Quarter split us down the middle. We're the majority of the city. We run the city if we work together. So I would do this, if it was South St. Louis, I would be stopping it the same way and saying, you cannot put all the new trucks in North St. Louis, okay? We have to have a fair and equitable city where everybody feels like they're part of the solution. All right,
It's
so
supposed to be a union agreement, right?
it's a memorandum of agreement, which I want, understanding, I'm sorry, MOU. It's not legal though,
Okay.
unless we incorporate it in this pay bill or we bring a different ordinance, okay? But they've been following it anyway, so the fact that the person who came before the streets committee came and testified that he had been following it and that he had to continue to follow it was, that was distressing to me. And then when we read it, it gave it what's called a full force in effect, that even if this agreement was not passed again, that it would remain in effect until something else happened. So, in meeting with the director of personnel, he said that wasn't so, right? But, I wanted everybody to have a copy of this, and it's on page 8.
I gotta just, he's still running.
Okay. Okay, but I'm gonna pass out what we have.
Do we have a copy of it?
That's what, page 8, article 13, I'm gonna pass out what I have, okay? I want everybody to see this. And so this made me really know that we have to, read memorandums of understandings, okay? That is something that we have to look at, because we hadn't been able to have access. I'm gonna pass them out as she brings them in.
May I address the committee?
Sure.
Alderman? Thank you, Chairman.
I'm sorry.
What I wanted to say is, actually, I'll take ownership for this. I signed this in error. Anytime there's a department level negotiation between a union and a department, it is supposed to be facilitated by the department of personnel so that we have someone there, that we understand the rules, that we make sure the civil service rules and the department of personnel administrative regulations are abided by. We did not have anyone facilitate this particular contract. And it's not a contract, pardon me, memorandum of understanding. Furthermore, we don't have, never in my 14 years have we ever done what we call an evergreen contract where, you know, a memorandum of understanding or a collective bargaining agreement goes on. You know, it has to have a beginning date and an ending date. So this was presented to me, and, you know, I thought it had gone through our employee relations section. It had not. It has expired, but again, as Chairman Tyus stated, there's a clause saying that it's still in effect. But it is not a legally binding document. We advise each of the unions that if they want their department MOU to be in full force and effect, it needs to come to the Board of Aldermen and be placed in an actual ordinance form pursuant to Ordinance 62234.
Right, right. And so, in case you're not understanding what we're talking about, if you look here in Article 13, it talks about how the drivers can pick on seniority, their route, and then also that the new trucks will be assigned by seniority. That will have a very terrible effect upon certain routes. Even in South St. Louis, it might be all in Southwest St. Louis, if people are picking what they would consider to be cherry pick the best routes, that can negatively affect a lot of people. We're all paying taxes, and we all want to. I did not want to pay $14 when I left this board of aldermen. We weren't paying anything. Then we went to 11, and now we're at $14. And if we're going to get new trucks, and I would say I'm also opposed to seniority being that way, because we want good drivers all over town. Okay, there is no part of town that is more important than the other part of town. So these are the kind of things we're going to have to look at if we're going to talk about equity across the city. All right, so we got that. While we can proceed with presenting this bill in a minute, but right now, I'm having them make a copy of letters that I wrote about Todd Waterman, and you all know it that was here. If you weren't, you're going to hear about it. That he actually held me in my office, and not only me and Alderwoman Christina Ingracia in January of 2017, and I wrote letters to the personnel director, and I also wrote letters to then Mayor Slay about it. And he actually sought to me and physically would not let me leave my office, and a lot of aldermen and staff witnessed it, okay? They were here. They heard it, they saw it. I'm not gonna say the names now, and nothing was done about it because he was in the transition of, although he had been a classified employee, he was unclassified working in the mayor's office. If he would have been a regular employee, he would have been fired. He should have been fired. He should not be here. I do not let my physical presence be around Todd Waterman. The other day when he was here by me, I moved. I'm saying his name out loud because I have hired an attorney. I'm going to sue Todd. And if the city backs up Todd Waterman, I'm going to sue this city also. And I'm also coming out because when this happened, I did found other people he had done these kind of things with, and but they don't want to come forward. In this Me Too situation about sexual assault, shame on Sharon Tyus. I'm going to claim this because I should have had him arrested right then and there, and shame on me. And if somebody else gets hurt, because I physically felt that he was going to attack me, and Christina had to, Alderwoman Ingrassi escaped by going under his legs and under his arm. And that kind of anger, we need to have some kind of program set up for anger management, and for dismissing those kind of employees, whether they are classified or unclassified. And so I want you to have this when you see what else I am taking out of this board bill. I'm not going to protect Todd Waterman anymore. I'm going to say his name out loud every place I go, because that's how people get away with this kind of thing. He is out of order, and is frightening. And I was physically scared, and I'm not, you all know I'm not a physical frightened person, but I was physically scared of Todd Waterman. And shame on Frances Slay for not doing anything. The director's hand was tied. And shame on the new mayor if she continues to let him stay in a position of authority in which he negatively affects people, and would have the nerves to come at an alderman's door and keep them from physically leaving. That tells you what he might be doing with the other people, okay? So I want you all to see this if you have not seen this letter, because I intend to pursue it. I don't intend to let it go. And I don't think Todd Waterman should be any kind of employee with the city of St. Louis. And I cannot, with good conscience, let that happen to somebody else, and I don't address it.
Thank you. There you go. Are these
Just
all,
one
is this
set.
one packet? Oh, I see.
It's all and I never got a reply back from the former mayor. Now, the director replied back to me, and our president, to his credit, changed the way we were supposed to keep the doors closed and everything else, because everybody knows that it happened. It's nothing I made up. Way too many people were witnesses to it, okay? So this is all, okay, these are the pages. No, they will make the copies.
All right.
Did we take them, we have to take, oops, okay, we have to take them out. That's what I wanted
Well, I
you
was
to do.
gonna leave them there until we make, are we gonna make copy of the whole thing, or
No.
gonna make copies of just
No,
the
we're just gonna
pages?
make copies
All right,
of the
I'll take
pages.
them out. Give
Okay,
them to me.
I missed one.
That's okay, I'll find it.
Okay,
I will find it.
right, just take those out. We don't need to
All
just
right.
keep wasting paper.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
may I ask,
Sure.
so what does this have to do with the pay bill?
I will show you in a minute because I have an amendment.
I had a 10:30 meeting, so
Okay. Okay, if you need to go, you do. We have enough for a quorum. I will tell you what it is. I have an amendment to take out a protection for things like this. People should not be protected when you do things like this. You should be able to, and it's in this pay ordinance, okay? And you, when somebody makes an allegation, because I would call it an allegation, it should be investigated. It shouldn't be said that, oh, they're in the mayor's office, nothing can be done. If they make it against me, you ought to investigate me too, okay? So,
But when that, because I wasn't present when that happened, but I did receive the memos that you sent out. So was there not an investigation from the personnel department?
no, because they're not, because, well, so, they're not authorized to investigate the mayor's people,
Okay,
which I think we need to address.
okay.
You understand
So
what I'm
that's what
saying?
you're trying to address then?
Correct, and it's in,
Okay, okay.
because there's a protection, and I wanted you to have this all, so that you, I wouldn't be doing this, okay? This is very serious to me, and the more I've seen people come out with things like this, then I feel like that I have failed the other employees of the city of St. Louis, some of who came and told me, this is what he's done. I can't release their names, yes, okay, because they don't wanna come forward, but I can come forward.
Well, my meeting's up in BTS.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't take too long and I'll be
Okay,
back.
we'll be here.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought you weren't gonna, I thought you said he was gonna leave.
Well, tomorrow.
Okay.
I just,
Okay, so they're making the amendments that personnel wants to make. They're friendly amendments. They'll make it so that we can get paid, the people who are getting, not we, us, not the Board of Aldermen, we keep our salary, that great amount of money that we make. But for the rest of the people, they will be able to get the raise. We'll probably be a few days behind what we had targeted, but they've come up with a great way to make sure everybody gets their money when they're supposed to. And my constituent and the Director of Public Safety, Mr. Jimmy Edwards, has twisted my arm so many times. He's using up every favor he has for this. I came up, I want to talk to the rector and Linda. So after we talked about the memorandum of understanding, I came up with something I thought that would address this. I want to give this to you. I don't want to put it before the board without it's something, I mean the committee without it's something that you could agree to. But I really just came up with something saying what a memorandum was and that it wasn't it wasn't law unless we incorporated it into the pay bill or we incorporated it into the a different ordinance. I wanted to let you see this pay ordinance and see if this is something you could agree to. And I just came up with this morning, so. Where is it? Here it is. But I don't wanna hold up anything that you can't agree to. Okay. Could you pass that down to them?
You got enough you need?
Well, I don't wanna put it before the committee before they
Oh,
look at it,
okay.
okay? Can you just pass it down to them? If they say it's something that it just basically says, just what I said, see if it's something you can agree. If you can't, I won't put it before the committee.
Any coffee? Beer. Any coffee, Sharon? Beer.
Oh, I'll drink water, I'm not a coffee drinker. And you can I'll sit one down if Judge Edwards wants to see it, since he's a lawyer, he can kinda tell you if I'm trying to trick you, which I promise you I'm not. There's another one, Linda has an extra one.
Yeah, I do.
I can say that, based on my reading, this is consistent with what the current practice and policy is. However, we typically in the pay ordinance is the official collective bargaining agreement for the city and includes all the unions and all the employees, and therefore, any operational issues that are on a department level, we usually do not incorporate into the pay ordinance.
Okay.
We could, but we have not in the past.
Okay,
But outside of that, the rest of this is correct. We always inform as part of our due diligence, the unions, that when they sign a separate agreement with a collective bargaining, or a collective bargaining agreement or MOU with myself, that if they want it to be enforceable, we can only enforce to a certain extent, but if they want it to be an actual contract or the equivalent of a contract, It has to be put before the Board of Aldermen, hearings held, et cetera, and then placed in ordinance form in order for
Okay.
it to be a
And
binding
there-
contract.
There is an ordinance that states that already.
Okay, then I won't do that. I just did that because we were talking about how to,
Yeah.
so this morning I woke up, I won't clutter this. I just want to make it sure so that if, someone is still relying on that MOU,
Right.
that's allegedly is expired, but still have a full force and effect, that they don't rely on that
You're absolutely
anymore.
correct,
You're
ma'am.
absolutely correct.
And it's under ordinance 62234, section 7.
Okay,
And I will say also, I feel comfortable saying this, that I had met with the mayor and administration, and they were supportive of your recommendation that the trucks be equally distributed. And I also received correspondence asking for AFSCME's contact information this morning. So I do think that action is being taken swiftly to address the concerns that you outlined about that memorandum of understanding, I'll
Okay.
just call it that.
all right, then I won't, then I don't need to put it before the
I
board.
think this language is very similar to what is in the current
I
ordinance.
believe it is.
Okay, so now I have the friendly, corrections amendments that we have before us. Instead of copying every page, we just copied the pages that we're going to correct here. Here. And these are the ones that personnel, are recommending, so this is not my recommendations, this is theirs, so it's nothing that I'm trying to, get before you. I will do mine separate,
And we met with the commission this morning and they approved this amendment.
okay?
So the Civil Service Commission has amended it, and the only change is that in prior,
Does everybody have copies?
I'm sorry,
Everybody have copies? Okay. Judge Everett, you have a copy? Are there extra down there?
here's my second.
Here's one. Who needs it? Lisa, you need it?
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, so then we have to have an motion to put the amendments before.
Do we have these in amendment form?
Well, they're kind of just little corrections, okay? Now, if you need that, this will hold this bill up. I'm trying to get
Let's just get
this,
it done.
I'm trying to get this is not mine,
No, we're
so
trying
this is
to
not my
get it
bill,
done.
okay? I'm doing this in spite, so, that's why, we were working on this till late last night, and so this was the way we can do it, and then we can go to each page and you can look at what the page says versus what they're changing, okay? If you want, and I told them this, if you ask for this, Alderman Coder, you can have it the way that.
I am not asking for it.
Okay, you have the right though, okay?
No, it's fine, this'll work.
Okay.
I can do this.
The only
Alright.
change is that the.
Wait a minute, just a minute, wait.
Pardon me.
Okay, does everybody have copies? Okay, and don't we have to do a motion to put the
Yes.
amendments before us? I'd entertain a motion to put, friendly amendments from personnel direction, really more corrections before us, and, Board Bill 68, Amendment 1.
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll. And we
No.
vote, we did a roll.
We
Vote,
did- we did a roll.
Previous roll.
Yes, okay. All right, Mr. Franks, if you would tell us about, each of these amendments and refer to the page, because what we're gonna have to do is, everybody's gonna have to get your board bill out, and then he's gonna have to refer to the page of what he's doing, okay? And is anybody confused what we're
I
doing?
don't have a copy of it.
Okay, and they've underlined what they are changing. And I wanna say again, if any of you all want this reduced to writing, we are required to do that under the rules of the Board of Aldermen, okay?
Okay. The first is on the very first page, at the last paragraph. The past ordinance said that the provisions of the sections contained in this ordinance are effective with the start of the first pay period following approval by the mayor. And what we are suggesting so that people can get their raises on time, and the police and fire and all the city employees, we are recommending to the board that the language be changed to the provisions of this section contained in this ordinance shall be effective at the start of the pay period in which the ordinance is approved by the mayor. That gives us the additional time necessary if this board recommends that it be passed out and the board approves it, so that we'll be able to go back to that pay period and everyone will be able to get their raise. It's that simple. And Linda thought of the language, and we shared it with the city councilor's office, and everyone was supportive of it, so.
And how we're gonna do this is after each change, we're gonna give people who have a question a chance to ask questions if they don't understand it. But I would like to just do it as one amendment, but we wanna make sure everybody's on the same page, okay? Is that all right with the committee?
Yes.
Okay, all right, well, we're gonna always go by seniority. Alderman Williams,
No questions.
Alderman Arnold,
I'm with you so far, no questions.
okay, okay, Alderman Coder,
No questions.
Alderwoman Green.
Just a clarifying question. What you just read is what's already written in both. So should this be Board Bill number 68 as amended that is in front of us? Or,
No, that's, no, I
Because-
haven't gotten an amendment.
okay, because what was read, what was said that was being changed is already what's written here.
No, it's slightly
No,
different.
it's different.
It's almost the same.
That's why, okay,
Excuse me, can I?
tell us, yes, please tell us
One-
the difference.
The original one says it's effective upon the mayor's signature, the pay period after that. This one says it's effective with the mayor's signature,
those are her
which,
changes.
that pay period in which that occurs.
Now, do you have a copy that says the same thing?
Okay, I see it now. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want a highlighter or something?
That would be,
Okay. See, I have another highlighter for people
It's
who can't
tricky.
follow.
It's tricky.
Okay, anybody else need a highlighter? Okay, all right, so, anybody else have any questions? Okay, we're going to the next page.
If you give us the page number, we don't have a copy
Oh,
of the
oh,
amendment
do-do-do.
before you.
He gave,
Let us speak to it, thank you. We can kind of share it.
okay,
Page 29.
We did this
We're on
one.
page 49.
There's the
okay,
second
the
one.
next page.
The next page is 29.
29 under the general management pay schedules. Again, this is the same type of language, just saying that these new pay grades shall become effective at the start of the biweekly pay period of the effective date of this ordinance.
Committee, this is on page 30 of the existing bill.
Sorry.
It, for some reason, I
the
animation
page
got
numbers
screwed up.
You guys must have, got rid of some spaces.
Must have.
Okay, cause you didn't change
Oh,
the
yeah.
board bill.
No.
Right,
No,
That's in the bill, that's the amendment.
nothing has changed.
and so you go to general and management pay schedule. So yes, everything has been shifted.
Yes.
Okay, so whenever you printed it out, you had left some spaces, and that, you must have gotten rid of
Must
it,
have.
so, we're a few pages off, but we wanna be on the same page. Okay,
And the next is the.
wait,
Wait.
okay,
They gotta make an amendment, they're gonna,
we gotta make sure everybody understands, we're gonna do one motion.
Oh.
Alderman, Williamson, you have any questions?
No, 29 and 30.
Okay, so it's not on page, so we know that it's on page 30,
Right.
not 29.
Old
Right.
bill, yeah,
Okay.
just-
All right, Alderman
No
Arnold.
question.
Alderman Cohen, sorry, Kotar,
No questions.
Alderwoman Green.
no questions.
Okay, go to the next page.
finger down. I'm gonna presume it's on 33 on the old one and 32 on the new one.
Yes,
Pretty good, aren't I?
smart, been around a long time.
Sure, you learned from me.
Yeah, I did, Larry.
This section just again is the same principle, same language, except it's for the trade schedule, and they have a separate pay grade.
Alderman Williamson,
No question.
Alderman Arnold,
No question.
Alderman Coler,
No questions.
Alderwoman Green.
No questions.
Okay. You know, I'm charging for that yellow.
Frank and I are the highlighter people.
Okay, you are the special.
Are we okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Anything's
Same
color coded.
Next one's page 37, and I think they're the same page.
Okay,
It is.
And page 37, are we ready to proceed?
yes,
Page 37 outlines the police division pay schedule. And again, their schedules are different, same as fire, but it's the same language that this will become effective at the start of the biweekly pay period, or the effective date. So this ensures that both police and fire would get that $6,000 raise evenly divided through the 26 pay periods.
Alderman Williamson,
No question.
Alderman Arnett,
I'm with you.
Alderman Cody.
No questions.
Alderwoman Green,
No questions.
okay? Well, but wait till this full thing comes before.
Yeah.
I know.
This is the easy part, okay?
Last page is, I've got 115. Is it 116 on yours?
Section 28 on severability.
Yeah, it's just the Board of Aldermen, it should have been, it says Alderman.
It's a Scribner's error.
It's
The
on
scripter's there.
severability.
Yeah, it's on
Section.
severability.
It's on page 120 and 121 of our old.
Okay, 115 on this one.
I'm sorry, what is it?
120 and 121 of
Well,
our
then, wait a
bill.
minute, if that is a problem, because it shouldn't be that much of a difference.
I can't speak for that.
It
I
should,
can't either.
wait a minute, so something happened here.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
who's actually gonna make these these amendments? Who's gonna make these changes? Lisa doing that?
yes.
Okay. I believe Lou's at a CLE today.
I beg your
I
pardon?
think Lou's at a CLE today.
Well, I can actually do it if need be. I know how to do it. They will get done, okay?
Okay.
We might have to take a break and I'll go get to the typewriter. This is going to get done, okay? Because my arm is broke and I live 2 blocks from the chair, from the director of public safety, okay?
I don't think I was that
I'm gonna have to
aggressive.
send my husband over to his house, okay? Okay, so again, I do not understand how we get, how,
I don't either.
something's wrong.
Pretty big gap there.
Something is wrong with this here. Now, everything else was okay, but we gotta find out what the problem is before we address this last one.
Were these were these page numbers inserted manually? I mean, was it just a typo?
No,
Okay.
Oh.
no, so you see there's a problem. The accountant in me says there's a
Absolutely
problem.
not.
Yes.
114,
It
116.
was supposed to be a darker grade.
Oh, well,
Then about a page off. She's got the full one here.
27.
So can
I'm
we
looking
put
to
that
see if I
full
see anything.
thing together and see if we're missing something?
You've got that page.
Yeah.
The scales. Alright. Shift. Way down. Boards and commissions.
Yeah, we're like missing 5 pages from someplace.
I don't know. I'm looking.
I know, we're waiting.
I know.
It's better that we find it now.
I agree. You're absolutely correct, Alderwoman.
Do we need a little recess?
Yeah, I would.
Can we take a 5-minute recess, people, so that we can find out what this, okay. Page 121 of 126, we are amending, it is the third sentence. It says, be presumed that the Board of Aldermen, it says, be presumed that the Aldermen, we are changing that to Board of Aldermen. Okay? Everybody on the same page? Alderman Williamson, do you have any questions?
no questions.
No
Alderman-
questions.
Alderman Coda.
No questions.
Alderwoman Green.
Question.
All right, now we need to have a motion to, before us to amend Board Bill 68 with all the corrections and amendments as Amendment 1. Who
So
did it?
moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
Okay, okay. Now, Director Franks, you have the floor to present the full board bill to us, please.
Thank you. This board bill is the culmination of long negotiations with 13 of our unions. We have signed collective bargaining agreements with 11 of those 13. The only ones that we did not reach an agreement with yet, one was ASME, and we are actually going to the State Board of Mediation because ASME has been taken over, the local 70, it was local 410, then they were taken over by Missouri Council 72. That representative was terminated from his position, and now the international has come in, and we need to make sure that they have actual recognition from the State Board of Mediation and the authority to represent these employees. So we're in the process of doing that. The other group that we don't have an agreement with yet is the St. Louis Police Leadership Organization, which are the police lieutenants, and they have asked to hold off negotiations until the end of June. That's just their preference. We're currently in litigation with the SLPLO on 3 different lawsuits, and I think they're deposing me in a couple matters, and I think they just prefer to wait to negotiate until after some of these matters are moving forward. However, what we did do is make several changes within this ordinance. We eliminated the P schedule. It was a very archaic type of schedule. This is cleaner. Now we have G, which is for the general employees. We have the T's for the trades. We have the M for the managers. And really, the P schedule didn't mean anything anymore. It was used in the past, and so we felt we could clean up the ordinance just by removing it. We also eliminated 89 classifications from this plan. We were very happy to do that. We didn't do that on our own. We sent out letters to each of the different departments and asked for their feedback if they were currently using any of these job classes or thought they might in the future. And based on their feedback, we removed 89 classifications. There were also 13 classification title changes and then 34 overtime code changes in order for us to remain compliant with the Department of Labor. We're actually a little bit more generous than the Department of Labor requires. And then lastly, in terms of pay grades, the only suggestion that we made was for the payroll manager, which is an enormous job, and we felt that in looking at that job, in order to be competitive, that really needed to be changed from pay grade 16 to 17, given the scope of duties. Section 2, very importantly, obviously, this pay bill provides through Proposition P, both fire and police to receive $6,000 raise. That'll be included in their matrix. It comes out to, I think, $230 some a pay period. That is included. So police and the fire get that. Something that was close to my heart is that employees who are at the top of their pay range and therefore have not been able to have an increase for a number of years will be allowed for this 2-year period through the collective bargaining agreement, if passed, to get the 1.5% increase. Some of our employees who we took over from the police division have not received a raise since September 1st of 2013, and we have hundreds of employees now who are at the top of their pay range. This will allow them to receive an increase. It doesn't even keep up with inflation, but it does give them something, and in 2 years that would be a 3%. So we're happy about that. We also eliminated, or will change the way we've dealt with advanced starting salaries for our skilled people, for our trades, for our plumbers and pipe fitters and electricians and carpenters. Now if they come to us with a Department of Labor certificate, they get put up at a higher rate. But if you get that type of certification after you start with the city, under the current process, you don't get anything. We're changing that so that if you show the initiative and you show the wherewithal and take the time and spend the money, to go get that training and become either a Department of Labor certified person or the equivalent, you get moved up to that new rate. So we're really happy and excited about that as well. We removed this section on substance and maintenance charges. This is, you'd have to be here as long as Linda, I think, and Alderman Tyus to know what that was. But apparently we used to actually have some housing that we had for city employees. We spoke with the comptroller, and she was supportive of taking this out because it no longer applies to us. We no longer have that, just like we no longer have any hospitals. Overtime, one of the things that we did was change how we figured overtime for police sergeants. And we actually discovered that the police were not receiving even straight time pay after they worked 160 hours, and that was very onerous to me. I was very upset to learn that the police division was doing that. I think it was an honest mistake, but what I directed was that all the way back to the time when we had a settlement case for the police sergeant overtime, we went back and made all those employees whole. As they were figuring it, if they worked like 10 hours and 10 hours and 10 hours, 7 days in a week, 70 hours, they got nothing. They got just their regular bi-weekly pay. So we told them to cease and desist, and then we went back all the way back several years ago to the date when the federal court settled the case, and we made all those police sergeants whole. Furthermore, in this new ordinance, police sergeants will start getting overtime after 160 hours, assuming they work a normal 40-hour week. And instead of it just being hours physically worked, we also now are giving them credit for their floating holidays, for their holidays worked, and then importantly, sick injured time. I think of Officer Lake, whom I've sat at the table with, who was shot in the face doing his job. He had already worked overtime hours, but he got nothing for it because he was shot. And that was just heinous to me. So this corrects that situation, and that's already been corrected. Vacation, it's a small change, it's a housekeeping thing, but the police used to figure their vacation on a daily basis instead of the bi-weekly. We want to make the whole city function the same way, and so we negotiated with the unions and they agreed to go to a bi-weekly rate. They get like 0.2 hours more by coming into our system, so nobody was harmed. And then also, we did the same thing for sick leave. We wanted the sick leave calculated in the same manner, so that it's on the same basis and not the way that it used to be done through PeopleSoft. And I'm trying to think, I think that's probably the most of the important changes. Again, we had a very good, long, challenging collective bargaining process, but one of the things that I was happy about is that we were able to remove from the police memorandum of understanding binding arbitration. We also were able to remove interest arbitration and impasse arbitration. So we feel like the whole system has come together more as a city. Pardon me, Jeff? Oh, drop, yeah, thank you.
Excuse me.
Excuse me, point of order here.
There, go ahead. You have to be recognized, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. One of the things I neglected to say is that we have a wage reopener for each of these 2 years. I'm hoping that the board will see fit at some point to, perhaps give some additional funds besides the 1.5% to city employees. We've been long neglected. We spoke very late last night. Alderwoman Tyus is aware that in 2004, 5, 6, 7, and 8, our employees got nothing. We were furloughed in 2008, 2009, and then this city ended with a surplus of $2.9 million, which should have been returned to the employees, in my opinion, and it was not. And I said, these employees, while I'm director, will not be furloughed again. I was ashamed of that. One of the things that we were able to do, thinking within the box without me getting any more money, is that our drop program is broken as far as I'm concerned. In our drop program in employees' retirement system, you can go into drop after you get the rule of 80 years of service plus your credible service. Rule of 85, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the county.
That's okay.
Rule of 85, you can then go into the drop program and continue working, and they put it into a special interest-bearing account. That's cost neutral. The problem is drop programs were designed that once you left, after you got out of drop, you left the service. Or another way to do it is to allow people to come back, but they have to start a new period of service. All the unions agreed that they would meet with me and see how many dollars we could save by eliminating the drop as it is. We'll keep the drop, but we'll change it so that you have to start a new period of service. Our preliminary estimates show that it could be $1.5 to $2 million, and I've spoken both to Mr. Walterman as well as the budget director and said that I'm adamant that if we reach that agreement with the unions, we will do it as part of our wage reopener. We will give people about 6 months to get into drop. It won't affect anybody who's already in drop or out of drop, but if that money is released, I'm using that for employee wages, and I will be presenting that to this committee as an additional second-year increase for employees. So that's an important component, something I'm excited about. And I also have pledged and reached out to Mr. Order to look at changes in the police retirement system. All of our systems are fairly well funded. I've testified before, ERS is at 82.5%, which is wonderful. FRP is doing fantastically well. FRP doesn't even have a drop program. So, and the legislation has been stalled in terms of pension reform at the state level for police. So I've spoken to Jeff on several occasions. He's eager to get back with me and negotiate possible changes so that we could, the city can benefit long-term monetarily and possibly give some additional raises, to the police and through Perry Fire. So that's a summary, and I'd be glad to answer any of the Alderwoman's questions. She knows this pay ordinance now better than I do, I'm embarrassed to say, after last night.
Okay, we go by seniority. Alderman Williamson,
No questions.
Alderman Arnowitz.
No question, but I like the point you bring up. I mean, every year, furloughs were only supposed to be used for emergencies when you couldn't meet your budget. And we've never been able not to meet our budgets every year. City employees, the 1.5% raise we give them is embarrassing. Insurance goes up every year. I think city employees, they get the bad rap. They do the work out there. I challenge them to go out there and work on paving on Germania right now. I would love to see it, and I think we have the money, and starting next year, hopefully that we can go back to a 4 to 5% raise for city employees. I mean, they just feel like they work their butts off and they really don't get rewarded. So when you're giving a 1.5% raise to a person that's making $75,000, $80,000 to a person who's making $30,000, there's a big disparity there.
I agree, Alderman, and one of the things that we did with the matrix, before we implemented the matrix, which cost the city $2 million to do, people got nothing. The administration was not supportive. The prior administration was not supportive of granting raises, and it's a different feeling now. That's why we have a wage reopener. The reason we settled on 1.5% is because that's about what the city's general revenue is, so it's a starting point. Then what we'd like to see is if we get additional money, say from drop, or we do it across the board for everyone. And at the request of Alderwoman Tyus and the workers from the water division, for instance, I've already done a classification study and compensation study, and we'll be working, I've got a meeting set up with Kurt Scooby to address that because their salaries are very far out of whack. We have fallen so far behind in so many areas. So while people talk about residency, it's also salaries. Whether you're an accountant or an attorney or a water meter. As I shared with the chair, my niece is the Midwest Customer Service Director for Missouri and Illinois Water, 14 states. And they start their people at $27 an hour. And our people are making half that. So, we are committed. I've also, in a meeting with Linda, we met with the mayor, and we are going to look at, for the first time in many, many years, having an outside consultant come in and do a compensation study. And our strategy is that we can do that first through the enterprise accounts that have the money. And so I've talked to Mr. Scooby, and I've talked to Director Rhonda Newbrigge, and they're both supportive. And then I think we can incrementally, and I did some arm twisting with Judge Edwards there as well. That
You can take lessons from him.
Yes, I was little Jimmy at that meeting, and asking for some money for us to also look at some of our other positions. So, we've got to fight for a brighter future, and I just applaud this board for understanding and feeling empathy for our city workers, because these people that go down into the holes to put your water and pavement and do this hard physical work, is, I hadn't coined the phrase, but I like it. We're all first responders, one way or the other. So.
And I'm going to claim that.
It is. That's a wonderful phrase. So. Thank you, Alderman.
Director, I appreciate it.
Alderman Coder,
No questions.
Alderwoman Green.
No question.
I want to be added on as close.
I was just going to ask, I would love for the members of the committee if we could come out in unity and be all co-sponsor this bill.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
And just one more comment,
Yes, Alderman.
and just to follow up on the meeting that you had a few weeks ago, and talking to a lot of the city employees that we had come into the Public Employees Committee. It was a great meeting, it was a good meeting. It was an eye opener. I was just totally shocked at some of the horror stories that we heard in that meeting with some of the employees, especially with the water department and the streets, and with the lack of pay, and especially when you have a family, it's tough. You're paying for insurance, so you really don't bring much home, to your family when you're trying to support your family through medical insurance. So it was really an eye opener, and I want to commend you for having those meetings and having those employees come in. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I just want to say, I want to thank the Personnel Director, Ms. Thomas. This is the first time I've sponsored, even been on Public Employees. So I went from the first time being on Public Employees to being the chair of Public Employees. I know streets, public safety, I've been the chair, intergovernmental affairs, but it's very hard, and I was not sure about this bill. So I actually, if you look at this is my bill, okay? I read every page, underlined, called, did everything I would do to someone else, I did it to me, okay? I want you to know that, okay? I do believe in transparency of government. I want to follow what Alderman Williamson said. For those of you who are not at the meeting that Thursday, June 7th, it was heart-wrenching for me. The water department brought home how important water is. I mean, those young men and women that came to speak, they ought to be lawyers, because the fact of it is, if we don't have water, we don't have anything. And so I did not know they have to show up at fires, okay? And then when they told me about how far they dig down and that they're in charge of our water, I want to say 2 words to you people: Flint, Michigan, okay? St. Louis has some of the best water in the world. We cannot pimp our water employees and get this wonderful water that we sell to other people and not pay them. It bothered me, and it bothered Alderman Williamson. I actually met with the water workers again a few days later. Most of you know my husband's been in the hospital, had surgery a couple of times now. Okay, so I've been wifey, alderperson, a lot of things, but I did take time to go meet with them over at O'Connell's, over on Kings Highway in Shaw, and then they told me more stories, and they sent me comparative analysis. So they are serious about this, about how much you work, how much they make if they work someplace else. I want our water employees to be happy. That could be a problem for us if we have unhappy water employees. Between the time between Thanksgiving and December, we had a water problem right in my ward, right in front of the post office, and they were out there all night, many nights, okay? And for some reason, my side of where I live on Maffett Place is connected to that. So every time they had to turn off the water, they turned off our water just on one side of the street. So my husband and I, Sterling and I, we were up and down the street giving people bottled water, telling them, okay, run your water and put it in some kind of container so you could flush your toilet. We learned all about this on the even side of Maffett Place. But I took for granted. And then when the guys came in and talked about doing that, then I was like, I wasn't thankful enough, okay? Because I have people who will do that. They're not able to work overtime a lot of times because they have to do swing shifts or have to come in. So we have to pay people when they cannot even have secondary employment without permission. We have to pay people for that. I'm pushing them, not because other employees are not important, but they just made their story so personal for me. I did go to the civil service meeting when they had it. I did it because that's what Sharon Tyus does. I didn't know that other people hadn't done that, and people even. So Jeff Reuter, who is the police person, said to me, "This is the first time I've ever seen a chair over here." I do that. I really do care about the employees. I do believe, when I say this, I believe that all city employees are first responders. They're very important. When I need my fire put out, I want the fire department there, but I also want the water department to have that hydrant working, okay? So we intermingle. When I need secretarial administrative assistance, I need the people at the board to do their work. When I need cleanup, I'm a cleaning person. If I get mad, I'm gonna go through my house and clean up, okay? So I appreciate the people who clean up, okay? All people at the city of St. Louis are very important to me. I don't say that joking. So giving them a 1.5% raise is hurtful for me, okay? I also told the police, and I told them there, when I hear you saying you don't want to live in my city, that's hurtful to me, because I think the city is a great place, and Judge Edwards knows I twist everybody's arm about, don't move from them. It was called the 20th Ward. You stay right here. And when they gerrymandered me, I stayed right there, because I do love my city. I do want to compliment the mayor for giving even this raise. The prior mayor, City employees should not have been surprised because he never voted for raises when he was an alderman. He always voted against raises. So I want to compliment the mayor and to encourage her to look into these funds and find its funds to pay people. One of the things the water people brought home was that even with this raise, that they're losing money because the cost of health is more than their raise when they're factoring it in. We cannot be that kind of city. If we can give billionaires, chase after them with money, you know, I went viral and famous because I said it was like a stripper club. We're throwing money at the Rams, and they're throwing it back like, oh, we don't want it. If we can run after million and billionaires for money that we can give them, then we can pay our workers. It is not a campaign. I'm not running for anything. I really believe that. I come from a working class background. My parents worked hard. I was able to get a scholarship to go to Washington University School of Law and still owed $30,000 when I came out, but that's nothing compared to what people owe now. But we must advance our working and middle class people, and we do not do enough to do that. And if there's even a way that we can go back, even if we find some money someplace, because we've taken money from the treasurer's office, and I know we're just putting it in account for, but we're not supposed to be using it. But if we find money someplace, I would love to find ways to give people a raise, and maybe not the top tier. Maybe people make $100,000 don't get those raises, because I got here right after when the city used to only would allow you to make $25,000. That's how long I've been around, okay? So now these salaries have gone up, but we're not keeping pace with the working class people and the working people that make this city so important. And so I appreciate everything you did. I stayed 3 hours over there last night because I wanted to make sure I understood. Judge Edwards is my friend, okay? So I tease him when I said he twists my arm, but he backed me up in some things that I wanted to do. I never ask for anything that's not fair for the whole city. I will never do that. And so all of you all were very important. And I'm not gonna do the Todd Walterman Amendment because I'm gonna address that though, because it's very serious. And I feel guilty because I let it go on and I don't want anybody else to get hurt. And when I heard all the other people talk about how they got touched because somebody didn't say anything, it made it very important for me to address this, and it's not anything to play with. But I'm not gonna do it. I want everybody here, I would love to go out of here with everybody as they all added their names, so our full committee is doing that. That looks really good, and we want the city employees to know how important they are.
Madam Chair, may I?
Okay, just a minute. Alderwoman Green has one more thing, and then we'll let Judge Edwards.
I just had one question. If we had, during the years where we didn't do any raises, if we had a 3% cost of living, increase every year, how far behind are we? Like, what percentage of a raise would we be looking at now to actually get people up to where they should be?
That's an excellent question. I'm almost afraid of the answer because,
I am too.
because,
Yeah.
for instance, I'll say this, all those years where the city employees didn't get anything, the retirees did. The retirees under ERS, for instance, or FRS, et cetera,
Got their COLA.
they got the cost of living adjustment based on inflation. So we lost on inflation. We did our best to negotiate down health care, but there's been so many years that, for instance, I was discussing with the mayor that that now the average salary for a person coming out of college with a bachelor's degree in accounting is $54,000 in this area, and she says, actually, Rick, the top people can make even more. So I'm thinking we are a good probably 30% behind, and in certain areas even more. But that's what really troubles me and frightens me. But one of the nice things is if we do come across a new source of money, as you know all better than I, we can do an amendment at any time, and we've got the wage reopener built in. And the last thing I want to say, I want to thank Kathleen, hasn't been thanked, but she's the deputy director who accompanied me during these very difficult negotiations. And she understands how difficult it is for the trades and the different union reps to sit there and see different pay raises given out.
Yeah.
But they've gotten it because they believe
Yes.
our heart's in the right place. But I will also say, and I want to compliment Jeff. Jeff's here, Al's here, but the union reps, and the chairman said this at the Civil Service Commission, the unions don't just whine. you come and put pressure on your alderman for this divvying up the money. And I thought, I wanted to share that, Chairman, because that's such an important point. I can't do all that by myself. I need the unions to get involved. And that's one of the things that I had trouble with AFSCME. You know, they didn't even give the fair share. I stripped it of them. They didn't even comply. Prior to that collective bargaining, or that CBA, they had one in the works. They didn't invite us, and then they didn't even sign it. There's no signature page. It just dropped off the face of the earth. We need our unions who are representing our employees to follow through as well. Hal does that, Jeff does that, Jeff Hans does that, but all unions need to do that. So thank you very much.
Judge Edwards?
Madam Chair, just on behalf of all of the workers, public safety employees, I just want to thank you for your leadership. I know this has been very, very difficult, and I appreciate the Personnel Committee. We've met several times with the mayor, and she knows I probably twisted her arm more than I twisted your arm. We know that we have to do this, and that we have to do it when we say we're going to do it. I appreciate very much the efforts here this morning, the efforts that will have to take place tomorrow in order to make all of this work. So I just want you to know I appreciate your leadership on this, and I also appreciate the conversation about the water employees. And I understand the lack of respect that has occurred, and the lack of integrity that has occurred in those areas as well. And so I appreciate the fact that you were willing to address that on their behalf, and thank you for the new trash trucks.
And I want to say one other thing. When we had the hearing Thursday, the water department was so good, and so the police and fire didn't say anything because their pockets were full, and they came and said, we're for the ordinance, but we didn't even want to testify because we got it good compared to them, okay? So we do have to know that police and fire are important, but so are all the rest of our employees. And I appreciated that they were embarrassed enough not to even testify in favor of this. I thought that was amazing. The guy came and said, I did not know that they were only getting this. So sometimes you're so busy promoting yourself that you don't know that what some other people don't have. And with that, Jeff, did you have anything that you want to say?
I just want to remind him he was just forgetting that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I'm getting old and forgetful.
Mr. Alford, did you have anything to say?
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much, guys, and we wish we could negotiate for everybody.
Well, you can give part of that raise back to
Yes,
them.
we talked about meeting with all the employees to try to help out.
All righty, all
So
right.
thank you very much.
Anybody else here have anything they need to say? Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to pass Board Bill 68 out as amended with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Meeting is-